Yo, what up guys? It's been a while since my last video. This video will go over the talent build updates for 10.0.7 for all the tank specs I've been playing on live. Oh my god, holy f. We'll start off with Paladin. This talent tree just got reworked and the class is even stronger than before. Some utility is lost, like 1 minute Blessing of Sacrifice and Short Hammer of Justice. We also lose a little bit of healing from Judgment of Light. However, we do gain Crusader's Reprieve and Lightforged Blessing, which gives us a little bit more healing than before. The biggest thing is we can comfortably get Zealot's Paragon without giving up Seal of Alacrity or Seal of Might, which are actually better than before. Now for the flexibility points. In a dungeon like Shadowmoon Burial Ground where we want Turn Evil, you can drop Blessing of Protection to pick this up. Turn Evil, if you guys didn't know, can actually execute the add-on the first boss at 30%. Retribution Aura could also be taken now since it gives damage, but it's generally not worth it since the uptime is a little bit low and you're better off using Devotion Aura. Currently, Punishment is bugged, making you cast Blessed Hammer every time you interrupt with Avenger Shield. It's supposed to only count towards Rebuke, but for some reason, whenever you Avenger Shield interrupt, you're casting a free Blessed Hammer that gives you holy power and it does a lot of damage. And because of that, Divine Resonance is super worth taking. Not only does this provide a lot of extra interrupts, it also gives Absorb Shields and it now procs your Barricade of Faith and 2 set, giving you higher uptime on passive tankiness. As for Fading Light versus Seal of Order, Fading Light is actually very good defensively. Looking at this overall here, I was playing this. Fading Light was doing 16% of my overall healing, which is a lot. Actually, it's more than Bulwark of Order. But I do feel like giving up the 10% CDR on holy power generating abilities is a lot, and this does give you more damage than Fading Light, so I'm not too sure. Fading Light does seem like a little bit more of a defensive option, and Seal of Order just seems decent. They're both good options, it's hard to say. For the spec tree, this will be the main build we'll play. Over here, we gain Sanctuary for free compared to before, which is just 5% DR. And going down here, we have Seal of Reprisal. That's 20% more damage on Blessed Hammer, which is actually a lot considering we get free Blessed Hammers now from Punishment. And down here, we gain Inmost Light. Eye of Tyr now does a decent burst of damage, makes it easier to get aggro whenever you don't have Wings on Pull or Divine Toll, and it gives a little bit of CDR to Eye of Tyr. This isn't actually that impactful of a talent since you don't actually make that much use of the CDR, and the damage isn't that impressive. Like, it still does no damage for the most part. So you could take this out for Blessing of Spell Warding. You could also opt for Light of the Titan for extra healing, especially off healing. This is pretty good off healing in the dungeon like Court of Stars. Faith in the Light, if you want to go for the 100% block uptime, using this will give you 100% block uptime, and it's super useful for spell blocking in a situation like fighting Herja whenever she's doing the Beam of Light. But for the most part, this will be the default option. I guess you could also take Bastion of Light. This gives you a bunch of free Shield of Righteous or Word of Glory. And there is one other build that some people might play, which is the Moment of Glory build. This will give you a little bit more damage and will make you tankier inside of Wings, but losing Eye of Tyr is pretty big. You do lose a lot of defensiveness, and you do lose your free cheat death, and of course your Guardian of Ancient Kings is on a bit of a longer CD. I would just stick with this build for the most part. Now looking at Bear Tree. The main tree, nothing really changes. This is the default build and there's not a lot of options. For the spec tree, we go for the Thorns of Iron build. With this build, all you do is you spam Thrash, Mangle, and Iron Fur. And you do want to be consuming your Tooth and Claw procs, especially on single target or on primal mobs. With this build, you'll be pretty tanky and you will do a lot of damage, but in some situations, like a high Tyrannical key, you might want to pick up Pulverize. And in that situation, if you're going to pick up Pulverize, you should also drop these Moonfire talents down here. You can pick up Pulverize, Ursoc's Fury, and Redent Tear. This will give you another major CD for surviving bosses, especially like Herja, where you can pulverize the boss for extra DR. You do lose a lot of damage, however, from dropping Twin Moons and Galactic Guardian. These two talents make up for anywhere between 15 to 20% of your overall damage. However, we do gain Redent Tear, which makes up for a little bit of that. And up here, if you want a second charge of Survival Instincts, you could drop Brambles to pick up a second charge of Survival Instincts. This will give you even more safety, and it could be good for a dungeon like Temple of Jade Serpent on Tyrannical. Now looking at Demon Hunter, it's mostly the same, not a lot has changed. You can drop soul sigils for darkness. You can also pick up demon muzzle. It's kind of nice in some dungeons, like against Persia or Temple of Jade Serpent, ruby life pools, and sigil of misery. If we want to pick this up, we drop 1 point in soul rending. This will give us an extra AoE stop, super useful whenever you lack AoE stops. And for the spec tree, this is what I've mostly been playing. If you want a little bit more damage, you just drop Soulmonger for focus cleave. And over here, this is still a flexible option. It doesn't really matter. They do roughly the same damage overall. Elsing Decree does provide a little bit more control over when you do your damage, especially with like thundering or getting aggro on pull, or when there's like a certain burst phase. Fodder does get wasted a lot, but it's for the most part better on single target. I don't think it really matters. I would just opt for fodder just for simplicity. For the DK tree, things remain mostly the same. There's one flexible point, and it's Asphyxiate versus Cold First. Cold First is useful for the 3-second CDR. A 12-second kick lets you solo kick the construct in Court of Stars. Aside from that, there's not too much use for this. There's Grip of the Dead if you need the slow for whatever reason, whether it's kiting or spiteful. And there's Unholy Bond if you really don't care about any utility. However, I would just default to Asphyxiate. For Spec Tree, this is what I've mostly been playing. Umbilicus, most defensive option. One thing that people don't know about Umbilicus is you can cancel Aura of Umbilicus. So you Vamp Blood, and you cancel this, and it'll give you your shield right away. Your shield is also amplified by the absorb increase from Vampiric Blood. If you cancel right before Vampiric Blood ends, you will get a 40% larger shield. You could also just use it as a shield whenever you need on demand. So if you're just fighting a pack and you feel like you're in danger, you can just cancel it and you get a fat shield. As for Rune Tap, you can drop 1 point in Heartbreaker for Rune Tap, and Rune Tap is very big for hierarchies whenever you're dealing with big tank busters. There are a lot of situations where you might just get one shot as a DK, whether it's from something like Persia Beam if you don't have the CDs for it, or Temple of Jade Serpent, the Dark Claws, the Third Boss, the Haunting Gaze. Just like a lot of tank busters, Rune Tap will let you survive those at a hierarchy level. However, I would just for the most part default to this. For Warrior, there are also not a lot of changes. Class tree remains relatively the same. There are some flexibility points like Intervene for Halls of Valor. For the Spec tree, I made minor changes. Battle Scarred Veteran is just not worth playing because of how it works. It's counting pre-mitigation and it just procs randomly. And we opt for Punish instead for more single target and a little bit of tankiness against bosses. And instead of Thunderlord, we have Battering Ram. Battering Ram is actually very nice. It increases your single target damage, but it also gives you a lot more shield slams because of the increased attack speed, giving you a lot more rage, and it's just overall more damage. There's the flexibility option of Impenetrable Wall and Defender's Aegis. Defender's Aegis is really good in situations where you want 2 charges of walls, like Temple of Jade Serpent or Ruby Life Pools. Probably a couple other dungeons that I can't really think of off the top of my head. Maybe Halls of Valor. For Brewmaster, the talent tree doesn't change a whole lot. This will be the default build. If you want Generous Pour, which is mostly for your teammate, you can give them 4% extra avoidance by dropping Improve Roll, and you get 1 more point into this by dropping Celerity. You do lose 2 of your rolls, but it will help your team a lot. You could also opt for Eye of Tiger if you just want a little bit extra damage, and you can also drop these points for Bounce Back, which gives you a little bit extra defensiveness. It's kind of nice, but it's nothing too valuable. But otherwise, you can opt for Celerity and Improve Roll. For Respect Tree, this will be the main build. Not a lot changes. The only major changes are Training of Newzow versus Light Brewing. Training of Newzow does give you more passive tankiness, and it does give you a lot of extra damage that you don't gain from Light Brewing. However, Light Brewing does help you a lot defensively in situations with a lot of magic damage. So dungeons like Temple of Jade Serpent, you'll have much higher uptime on Celestial Brew. You can have much more defensives rolling, and this is actually very nice for the third boss. If you struggle to tank the third boss, you can almost always have a Celestial Brew for every single Serpent Strike hit. As for Black Ox Brew versus Bob and Weave, Bob and Weave is not as good as Black Ox Brew, but if you're not making good use of Black Ox Brew, you might as well just play Bob and Weave. I don't think it matters too much, but you can think of Black Ox Brew as another big defensive cooldown you can use. Everything else stays mostly the same. Oh, and I guess there's also this option, the shorter brew versus the larger fortifying brew. I find that the larger fortifying brew would help me in more situations where I actually need to do scary pulls, but if I'm not doing one particularly dangerous pull, I would just opt for the shorter fortifying brew and just use this more often. Anyways, that covers it for the video. The talent choices are a little bit flexible, so don't just stick with one specific cookie cutter build. I will try to get back to uploading more frequent YouTube videos. If you guys have any ideas of what you want me to be uploading or talking about, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all very much for watching. I will try to get out videos for 10.1 actually. I do want to get some videos going over the new dungeons. I've been testing those a lot on BTR. And of course, just always tune into my Twitch channel. I will be streaming pretty regularly. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hey. Think.
Huh. That was a flying guy.
Flying guy. And Bubbles on here.
I stopped there, we stopped.
Oh. Shades. I stunned this. Danger, stop the. Ow.
Barely.
I should probably res you. Maybe not anymore. What a good class. what a good class. Oh, I could have thought that. Yeah. It's fine, it's fine. Wait, don't release.
We can all get back.
Okay. This is what we were like the discussion about like how people were saying
That was sick.
like people who complain about
Somehow it took
air
longer
tank
than
whatever.
27.
Nope.